everybody. My name is Neha and welcome to my channel. So today's video is going to be a book review about the book Do Epic Shit. I just recently read it and thought that it would be a wonderful idea to share it with you all. It's written by Ankur Warikoo. I have been following him for the last 3 to 5 months, and every time I watch his YouTube video, I have something to take away from it. For example, in one of his videos, he had suggested a book called Almanac of Naval Ravikant, which I found it so interesting. I had to take away a lot of things from that, but one very important thing that stayed with me was, you should start something of your own. You should create something of your own, because that is the only way that can work for you while you're sleeping, while you're not even working towards it after a certain point of time. In a conventional job, until you work, you will get the money, you will get what you want. But once you stop working, you won't. But once you create something of your own, that is the way that can, work for you while you're sleeping. Once I got to know that this book of his, Do Epic Shit, is out, I knew I had to read it. Whenever I used to see his videos, I'll show you a clipping, it's there. He used to have, as you can see, a frame of Do Epic Shit on just a simple white plain background with Do Epic Shit written on it with black bold letters, and I used to think it's just another poster. But it's only now that I realized that it is his life's motto. So do epic shit. Do here implies the action. Epic implies cause larger than yourself, or the larger difficult problems that you take up to work on to solve them. And shit means having fun while you're doing all of this. So that makes Do Epic Shit, and that is what this book is about. So Ankur Warikoo is an entrepreneur, he's a teacher, and he's a content creator. He's taken a lot of entrepreneurial initiatives in his life. He started Groupon's India business as a founding CEO, and then he went on to buy it, and that is where he established nearby.com as a founder. Even before that, he had worked on various startups called secondshadi.com and gari.com. While he worked on all these startups and as an entrepreneur, he learned a lot of things. He learned how to run a business, he learned about fundraising, he learned about investing, he learned about people, and most importantly, he learned about himself, who he is, what he's good at, what he sucks at. Other than that, Ankur Warikoo is an ISB graduate, so that is one cool thing about him. According to him, awareness is the coolest thing that one can be equipped with. He says that making mistakes is not a problem. That's not a problem at all. In fact, that's what he has been doing. He's done throughout his life so far, and he's learned, and that is what has made him what he is today. So making mistakes is not a problem. The problem is when you make mistakes out of ignorance. He says that be aware, have that awareness, and then commit mistakes. He talks about the easiest way to learn from mistakes, and that is read books. The next best thing is to do them yourselves, but of course, then the turnaround time would be much higher than when you read books. Right before the launch of this book, he appeared in one of the interviews with NDTV, where there was a question and answer round, and one 24-year-old boy, he asked a question about the fact that people around him, his friends, his fellow classmates, they all know what they want to become, what they want to be, what they want to do, what ideas they have, but he himself, on the other hand, did not have that idea. To which he replied, one, half of them might not really have an idea of what they are supposed to do, what they want to become, but they're just putting up a facade on themselves as if they know everything. The other half of it might even know what they want to become, but then he must not compare himself with them, because their backgrounds are different, their learnings have been different, their history has been different, their beginnings have been different, the temperament of their parents have been different. So that is why it is not a good idea to compare himself with them. The thing that he should focus on is exploring as many things as possible, trying other things, trying new things, and then trying to find out what is it that he enjoys the most, what is it that he's happy doing the most. And this is also addressed in his book, where he says that we should try and find new unconventional ways of solving things, of doing things, of solving the problems, rather than living life as a template. There are several chapters. The first one is Success and Failure, wherein he talks about you should define your own success. You should find out what makes you happy. You should not let the world decide success and failure for you, because the world will. For example, you get a job after your MBA, a success, but your CTC is less than your neighbor's, failure. So let not the world decide the success and failure for you. He says that he has seen people who are successful on papers, means they may be the CEOs of an organization, leaders, but they're not happy doing what they are doing. So would you call that success? On the other hand, there might be people who might not be as successful as the others, but they're really happy and enjoying doing what they're doing. Wouldn't you call that as success? So again, a very important point, don't let anybody else define your success and your failure. He's spoken about problems. He says that everyone has problems. सबके साथ problems होती हैं, but हमें लगता है कि सिर्फ हमारे साथ problems हैं and everybody else is sorted, and that is not the case. It's just that if we rule ourselves and not let our problems rule us, we will be able to find out the solutions to those problems, rather than if we just keep cribbing about them, we will just amplify them and make them even bigger. He talks about feelings and emotions, and he says that हमें लगता है कि वो permanent है, but they're actually temporary, they will go. But उस time पे हमें लगता है, oh, this is what our life is focused on, this is forever gonna stay now, but that is not the case. You know, he says that most sports are not played on the field, they're played in mind, in here. He talks about ego, and he says that rather than उसके बारे में समझने के, what we do is we protect our ego and we work towards caring about our ego. Then he talks about the mistakes he did in his 20s and in his 30s, and you will be able to so very well relate to them. I could relate to them because I myself did so many of those things. Very important mistake that he talks about is that he used to eat shit, he used to sleep odd hours, and he used to keep a bad posture, plus he used to think that he has tomorrow to fix all of this. Another important mistake that he talks about is that he took loans. He used to assume that अगर बोलना अच्छे से आता है तो फिर content क्या है वो फर्क नहीं पड़ता, whereas that is not the case. He also talks about the mistakes in his 30s, wherein he assumed that relationships can wait. He also talks about the time when after his first child was born, he thought that he had lost his partner to the child. It's only later again that he realizes that if both the parents contribute towards raising the child, only that is the way to keep the partnership alive. He used to treat his lifestyle standards as a measure of his success, which was clearly a sign of a failure. He talks about his failure resume, imagine, because he says that it is a very important document, right? But it talks about the things that you've achieved. But how is it that you got there? Isn't it your failures that got you there to what you've achieved right now? Then in the next chapter, he talks about habits, and he focuses on the fact that forming habits is much more important than setting targets. For example, अगर आपको सुबह जल्दी उठना है, so rather than putting up an early alarm, the trick is to sleep on time. Such an obvious and simple thing, right? Yet we keep doing it incorrectly every day. Then he talks about some good habits like reading books, and more important than reading books is what you take away from reading those books. Another few good habits like documenting things, maintaining calendars, these are all entrepreneurial traits. He says that thoughts are powerful when converted into actions, else they're just broken promises to yourselves. Then he talks about awareness, and this chapter was clearly one of the favorite portions of the book for me. And this was the chapter, and just see the number of highlights that I have made, the number of sentences. See, I have made so many highlights on this chapter. So yes, I found it really interesting. He says that being aware of the situation is very important to make decisions. If everyone did it, it won't need to be said. For example, not everybody exercises, so it needs to be told more often. He says being calm is a skill, especially when you're ridiculed, when you're left alone, when you're questioned. Anyone can be calm when it is calm, but being calm in a storm is a powerful skill. And just because someone carried it well does not mean that the load is not heavy. Calmness doesn't mean lack of drive. Rather, it means that one has power to convert the drive into actions. Whatever you're doing, if you're authentic, truly yourself, then you have no competition. Comparing yourself to others, big waste of time. Use your college time to not look for a job, a good salary, and those things. Rather, use that time to explore new things. Try to sit on as many chairs as possible before you find the one that you belong to. Starting slow is not starting small. Those who learn, irrespective of age, continue to grow. This is all what he talks about in the chapter Awareness. Very, very important chapter. You've got to read it. Next, he talks about entrepreneurship. He says that it is not a profession, rather it is a state of mind. He talks about the do's and don'ts of entrepreneurship. He talks about what kind of a leader makes it, what kind of a culture enhances it, how team is developed. He says that with leadership comes the power of losing your calm, but only the leader who does not lose his calm is truly powerful. What are the hardest moments of an entrepreneur's life? How should his attitude be? All of this is talked about in this chapter, entrepreneurship. Next, he talks about money. Herein he talks about the mistakes, the investments, the lies, and the lessons that he learned. He talks about how money, taxes, inflation, liquidity, compounding, all of this works. He also talks about some misconceptions related to money. He talks about assets, what we think what they are and what they really are. He talks about how in spite of having a couple of startups to his name, he virtually had no money. In his next chapter, he talks about relationships with others and with yourself. He asks a question: would you want to be friends to yourself? Would you want to marry yourself? Would you like to be your own boss? If not, why not change some parts of you for better? He talks about the fact that it takes time and effort to build relationships, so give them that. True friends are not the ones that help you in your tough times. Rather, true friends are those who are happy to see you succeed and not jealous. Then another beautiful portion of this book is when he talks about those letters to his daughter and his son, which he never wrote, but he should have. It's very emotional, yet very practical. So in brief, it is a wonderful book. It is a must-read book, especially if you are in your 20s or in 30s. I really wish I had something like this in our 20s, and I had the awareness of the fact that I should be reading books and such books in my 20s. Kindle also shows you the time. It is the typical time to read is 3 hours and 15 minutes, total of 163 pages. The best part is that you open any chapter and you can start reading it. It doesn't have to be in sequence. So it's easy to read, short book, but very, very important. I hope you grab a copy and read it and let me know if you like it. Bye. Take care.